Cleaning. Lady accidentally hugged Millionaire CEO and called him my love. Sofia Martinez's fingers trembled as she folded the hospital bill into tiny squares, each crease a desperate attempt to make the astronomical sum somehow smaller. The harsh fluorescent lights of the empty office floor cast long shadows across her cleaning cart, a silent witness to her nightly struggles. 3 more hours of work, she reminded herself. 3 more hours to keep her mind off the fact that her daughter Anna's test results were sitting unopened in her bag, waiting like a time bomb. The clock on the wall of Chen Industries' executive floor read 10:45 p.m. Sofia methodically wiped down another desk, her movements automatic after months of the same routine. The cleaning solution's sharp lemon scent couldn't quite mask the lingering aroma of coffee that perpetually haunted the break room. His coffee. Mr. Chen, the enigmatic CEO who worked until midnight every night, taking his coffee break at exactly 11 p.m., like clockwork. Sofia had never spoken to him, but she knew his schedule intimately. The way he loosened his tie at 9 p.m., how he paced the length of his office during important calls, his shadow dancing across the frosted glass. The precise moment he would seek his nightly caffeine fix, a ritual as predictable as the moon's phases. Tonight, though, Sofia's usual careful attention to detail wavered. Her thoughts kept drifting to the envelope in her bag, to Anna's pale face during their last hospital visit, to the mounting bills that threatened to drown her. The memory of her husband Marco's face swam before her eyes, how he used to make coffee in their tiny apartment kitchen before his hospital shifts, how his absence still felt like a physical ache 3 years after the accident. The break room gleamed under her ministrations, chrome surfaces reflecting the overhead lights like stars. Sofia's eyes burned with exhaustion as she checked her watch. 10:57 p.m. She should leave before Mr. Chen arrived for his coffee, but her legs felt leaden, her mind foggy with fatigue and worry. Just a moment's rest, she told herself, leaning against the counter. The soft whir of the coffee machine filled the silence, its familiar sound almost comforting. Sofia closed her eyes, just for a second, and in that brief moment of vulnerability, the present blurred with memory. The scent of coffee, the quiet hum of machinery, the silhouette by the counter, so like Marco's. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. The warmth of another person beneath her arms shocked her back to reality, but not before the words slipped out. My love. The whisper hung in the air like smoke, impossible to take back. Time stood still. Sofia's arms were wrapped around a man who was definitely not her late husband, a man whose expensive suit probably cost more than her monthly salary. James Chen stood frozen, coffee cup suspended halfway to his lips, his breath catching in a way that seemed to echo through the empty break room. Neither of them moved. Sofia's heart thundered against her ribs, matching the rapid-fire thoughts screaming through her mind. I'm fired, I've lost my job, Anna's treatments, the bills, what have I done? But something else kept her from jumping away immediately. The slight tremor she felt run through Mr. Chen's body, the way his free hand had instinctively moved to cover hers for just a fraction of a second before they both realized what was happening. When she finally managed to step back, the loss of contact felt like stepping from a warm room into winter air. I'm so sorry, Mr. Chen. I didn't. The words stuck in her throat as he turned to face her. James Chen's face held none of the anger she expected. Instead, his dark eyes were wide with something that looked almost like recognition, or perhaps pain. He set the coffee cup down with deliberate care, its gentle click against the counter thunderous in the silence. You called me. His voice trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. The fluorescent lights cast shadows under his cheekbones, highlighting the vulnerability that had suddenly replaced his usual mask of corporate authority. Before either of them could say more, a sound cut through the tension, the distinctive ringtone of Sofia's phone, the hospital's ringtone. Her hand flew to her pocket as color drained from her face. James Chen watched as the woman before him transformed from mortified to terrified in the space of a heartbeat. The phone continued to ring, its cheerful tone now taking on an ominous quality in the quiet break room. Whatever had just passed between them was instantly forgotten as Sofia fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, her eyes already filling with tears she was trying desperately to hold back. If this story has touched your heart so far, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free, as your support helps us create more meaningful stories for you. Sofia's fingers trembled so violently she nearly dropped the phone. A quick glance at the screen confirmed her fears. Dr. Rivera's office. At this hour, it couldn't be good news. Her throat constricted as she swiped to answer, barely registering that James Chen hadn't moved, his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that seemed to pierce through her professional facade. "Hello." Her voice cracked on that single word. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Nurse Jenkins from Dr. Rivera's office." The voice on the other end paused, and in that heartbeat of silence, Sofia's world threatened to shatter. "We've reviewed Anna's latest test results." Sofia's free hand gripped the counter, her knuckles white. The break room's fluorescent lights suddenly seemed too harsh, too bright, making her dizzy. She closed her eyes, bracing for the worst. "The new treatment is showing promising results. The tumor has decreased in size by 15%. The relief hit her like a physical force, her knees buckling. She would have collapsed if not for the strong hands that suddenly gripped her shoulders, steadying her. James Chen had moved without her noticing, his presence solid and unexpectedly comforting behind her. "Mrs. Martinez, are you there?" "Yes," she managed, tears streaming freely now. "Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank God." The words tumbled out in a mix of English and Spanish, her composure completely forgotten. The nurse continued with details about the next appointment, but Sofia could barely focus. 15%. After months of watching Anna grow weaker, after selling her music school, after countless nights of prayer, finally, a ray of hope. When she ended the call, she became acutely aware of James Chen's hands still on her shoulders, of the lingering warmth from their earlier embrace. She turned slowly, wiping at her tears with trembling fingers, embarrassment flooding back. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Chen. First the incident, and now this. I'm not usually— How old is your child?" The question caught her off guard. His voice was soft, nothing like the commanding tone she'd heard him use during business calls. When she met his eyes, she saw something there that made her breath catch. Understanding, deep and personal. "Anna is 12, Sofia answered, surprised by her own honesty. She has a tumor in her brain." The words still hurt to say out loud, each syllable like swallowing glass. James Chen's hands finally dropped from her shoulders, but he didn't step back. In the harsh office lighting, Sofia noticed for the first time the faint traces of silver at his temples, the slight shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "My wife," he said, then stopped, as if the words physically pained him. His hand moved unconsciously to his chest where a wedding ring would have been. "Sarah had glioblastoma. Stage 4. We tried everything." The weight of those words hung between them, heavy with shared understanding. Sofia's mind raced back to all the nights she'd seen him working late, staying in his office until midnight. Not just a workaholic CEO, but a man hiding from an empty home. "That's why you're always here so late," she whispered, the realization dawning. A sad smile touched his lips. "And why you're my love, just now?" He shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. "Sarah used to bring me coffee every night when we were starting the company. She'd hug me from behind, just like you did, and say those exact words." Sofia's heart ached for him, for the loss she saw written in every line of his face. She understood too well the ghost of touch, how the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. How a simple cup of coffee could become a monument to absence. Before she could respond, the sharp buzz of James's phone shattered the moment. He pulled it from his pocket, frowning at the screen. "Beijing," he said, his CEO mask sliding back into place. But something had shifted. The wall between them had cracked, revealing the human beneath the power suit. "Mrs. Martinez, ... Sofia," she corrected softly. Sofia. He tested the name carefully, like tasting something unfamiliar. "We should—" The phone buzzed again, more insistent this time. Sofia could see Chinese characters flashing on the screen. Whatever had just happened between them, whatever understanding had formed in this late-night moment of vulnerability, would have to wait. "You should take that," she said, gathering her composure along with her cleaning supplies. "I've kept you from your work long enough." James Chen looked torn, glancing between her and his phone as if weighing something in his mind. Finally, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, holding it out to her with both hands. "My private number," he said quietly, "for when you're ready to tell me more about Anna." The card felt impossibly heavy in Sofia's hand, weighted with implications and possibilities she wasn't ready to consider. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her at the door. "Sofia?" There was something in his tone that made her pulse quicken. "Thank you. For the coffee." She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and stepped out into the hallway. Behind her, she heard him answer his phone, his voice shifting seamlessly into Mandarin. But it was the memory of how he'd said her name that followed her to the elevator, echoing in her mind like music from another life. The drive home that night felt surreal to Sofia, as if she were floating between two worlds. The business card in her pocket seemed to pulse with possibility, while the memory of James Chen's hands on her shoulders lingered like a phantom touch. But it was Anna's test results that occupied most of her thoughts, the precious 15% improvement that felt like a miracle. Her small apartment was quiet when she entered, save for Mrs. Rodriguez's soft snoring from the recliner where she watched Anna at night. Sofia paid her neighbor extra to stay late on cleaning shift nights, another expense she could barely afford but couldn't avoid. "Mommy." Anna's voice, still thick with sleep, came from her bedroom. Sofia's heart swelled as she made her way to her daughter's room. In the soft glow of the butterfly nightlight, Anna looked almost like her old self, before the illness had stolen the roses from her cheeks. Her dark curls, finally growing back after the last round of treatment, formed a halo on her pillow. "Why aren't you sleeping, mi amor?" Sofia perched on the edge of the bed, smoothing back Anna's hair. "I was waiting for you." Anna's eyes, so wise beyond her years, studied her mother's face. "You're smiling. Did something good happen?" Sofia gathered her daughter into her arms, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo. "The best thing, baby," Dr. Rivera called. "The treatment is working." Anna's body tensed, then relaxed. "Really? It's really working." 15% better, Sofia whispered into her daughter's hair, tears threatening again. "You're getting stronger, just like I knew you would." They held each other in the dim light, both too overwhelmed for more words. Finally, Anna pulled back, wiping her eyes with her pajama sleeve. "Maybe now you won't have to work so many jobs." "Maybe." "Shh," Sofia interrupted gently. "Don't worry about that. Your job is to get better, remember?" But as Anna drifted back to sleep, Sofia's mind wandered to the card in her pocket. James Chen's private number, a direct line to someone who might understand her struggles better than anyone. Someone who had fought the same battle, who knew the crushing weight of medical bills and desperate hopes. In her own bedroom later, Sofia finally pulled out the card. It was elegant in its simplicity. Heavy, cream cardstock, James Chen's name in understated black letters, a private cell number embossed below. Her fingers traced the raised numbers as her mind replayed their encounter. The way he'd steadied her during the phone call. The raw pain in his voice when he spoke of his wife, the understanding in his eyes when she mentioned Anna's tumor. He wasn't just a CEO offering charity. He was a man who had walked through the same darkness she now faced. Her phone sat on the nightstand, tempting and terrifying. It was well past midnight now. Would he still be at the office? Would he expect her to call? The questions swirled in her mind until exhaustion finally claimed her. She dreamed of coffee and warm embraces, of hospital corridors that turned into ballrooms, of a dance with a partner whose face kept shifting between Marco's and James's. When she woke, the morning sun was streaming through her window, and she knew what she had to do. With trembling fingers, she picked up her phone and the business card. Before courage could desert her, she typed out a simple message. "Mr. Chen, this is Sofia Martinez, about Anna's treatment." Her thumb hovered over the send button as doubt crept in. Was she crossing a line? Was she risking her job? Was she ready to let someone else into their carefully constructed world of two? The phone suddenly lit up with an incoming message, making her heart stop. There, on her screen, was a text from an unknown number. "Sofia, I hope you don't mind. I came in early to look up your file. I think I may know someone who can help Anna. Would you meet me for coffee? James." Sofia stared at her reflection in the cafe window, hardly recognizing herself. She'd traded her cleaning uniform for her one good dress, a navy blue wrap dress she'd bought for parent-teacher conferences back when life was simpler. Her hair, usually tied back in a practical bun, fell in soft waves around her shoulders. The woman looking back at her seemed caught between two worlds, much like her heart. The cafe James had chosen was modest, a quiet place 3 blocks from Chen Industries. Not the upscale establishment she'd expected, but a cozy neighborhood spot with worn leather chairs and the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee. He was already there, sitting at a corner table, his usual power suit replaced by a casual gray sweater that softened his corporate edge. He stood when he saw her, and something flickered in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. "Sofia," he said, her name still sounding like music on his lips. "Thank you for coming." The next hour passed in a blur of emotion and revelation. James had indeed found someone, a leading neurologist who'd pioneered an experimental treatment. He spoke of success rates and clinical trials, his hands animated as he explained the technical details. But it was the way he hesitated, choosing each word carefully, that told Sofia he understood the weight of hope he was offering. "The doctor owes me a favor," he said finally, his coffee long gone cold. "She's willing to take Anna's case, but—" He paused, running a hand through his hair in a surprisingly vulnerable gesture. "There's something else I need to tell you." Sofia's heart clenched. There was always a catch, always a price to pay. She steeled herself for disappointment. "The treatment center is in Boston," James continued, watching her face carefully. "It would mean relocating for at least 6 months." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Boston? 6 months? Leaving everything? Her jobs, their tiny apartment, Mrs. Rodriguez's help. Impossible. "I can't," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The costs, the logistics. I can't." James leaned forward, his hand moving across the table as if to touch hers, then stopping just short. "I've thought about that, too. I have a proposal, but—" He took a deep breath. "I need you to hear me out completely before you answer." He pulled out a folder from his briefcase, and Sofia's eyes widened as she saw the Chen Industries logo. "Our Boston office needs a cultural affairs director," he said softly. "Someone who understands music, who can coordinate with local arts organizations for our community outreach programs. The position comes with full relocation assistance and, more importantly, comprehensive medical coverage." Sofia's mind reeled. "But I'm just a former music school owner," James interrupted gently. "With a degree in piano performance and 5 years of experience running your own business. "I did my research, Sofia. You're qualified." The hope he was offering felt too bright, too dangerous. "And if I say no, then I'll still help you find a way to get Anna into the program. This isn't conditional, Sofia, but—" His voice dropped lower, more personal. "I think we both know this is about more than just the job." The air between them crackled with unspoken possibilities. In his eyes, Sofia saw the same loneliness that haunted her own reflection, the same cautious hope that scared her to death. Before she could respond, her phone chimed. Anna's daily "I love you" text from school. The sound seemed to break whatever spell had fallen over their corner of the cafe. James sat back, his CEO mask slipping partially back into place. "Take some time," he said, pushing the folder toward her. "Think about it." "But, Sofia—" His voice softened again. "Sometimes the scariest decisions are the ones most worth making." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and endless questions. Sofia threw herself into her cleaning duties with almost manic intensity, as if the rhythmic motion of wiping surfaces could somehow clear her mind. James kept his distance, but his presence haunted her every moment at Chen Industries. The lingering scent of his coffee, the sound of his voice through office walls, the weight of decisions unspoken. Anna's condition remained stable, each day a precious gift balanced on the edge of uncertainty. During their nightly talks, Sofia caught her daughter watching her with those two wise eyes, sensing the storm brewing beneath her mother's calm exterior. "You're different lately, Mommy," Anna said one evening, looking up from her homework. "Ever since that night you came home smiling. Did something happen at work?" Sofia's hands stilled in the soapy dishwater. How could she explain the complexity of what was happening? The chance for Anna's healing dangled before them like a star, bright, hopeful, but seemingly out of reach. And then there was James. The memory of their last encounter in the break room 2 nights ago flooded back. She'd been cleaning near his office when he emerged, tie loosened, looking as exhausted as she felt. "Have you thought about it?" he'd asked simply, his voice rough with fatigue. "Every minute," she'd answered honestly. He'd taken a step toward her then, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. "Sofia." The way he said her name made her shiver. "I know you're afraid, but—" She'd backed away, her heart thundering. "I can't. I need more time." Now, staring at her reflection in the kitchen window, Sofia realized time was a luxury they couldn't afford. Anna's next scan was in 3 days. The treatment program in Boston had an opening now, but it wouldn't wait forever. Her phone buzzed, a text from James. "I'm downstairs. No pressure, no decisions, just talk." Sofia's hands trembled as she read the message. Through her window she could see his car idling by the curb, its sleek black surface reflecting the streetlights. This wasn't the CEO making a business proposal. This was a man who'd driven across town at 9 p.m. because what? "Go!" Anna's voice startled her. Her daughter stood in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas decorated with constellations. "I see you looking at that business card every night, Mommy. Whatever it is, whatever you're afraid of, don't be. Not for me." Tears pricked Sofia's eyes. When had her little girl become so perceptive? "Mrs. Rodriguez is already here for the night," Anna finished with a small smile. "Go." The elevator ride to the ground floor felt eternal. Each floor dinged past like a heartbeat, counting down to something that felt bigger than a simple conversation. When the doors opened to the lobby, Sofia could see James through the glass doors, leaning against his car, looking more human and vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. She pushed open the door, the cool night air carrying the scent of rain and possibility. James straightened when he saw her, and in that moment, before either of them spoke, Sofia felt the world shift on its axis. The silence between them stretched like a living thing, filled with all the words they'd both been holding back. The streetlight cast a soft glow around them, creating an intimate bubble in the quiet night. "I couldn't sleep," James admitted, his usual corporate polish completely gone. "I keep thinking about Sarah, about how she'd tell me I'm being a coward." Sofia's breath caught. "A coward?" He took a step closer, close enough that she could see the emotion swimming in his eyes. "For not telling you the whole truth about why this matters so much to me." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "About why I can't stop thinking about that moment in the break room." A car passed by, its headlights sweeping over them like a spotlight, but neither moved. Sofia's heart hammered against her ribs as James continued. "When you hugged me, called me, my love, it broke something in me, something I'd kept frozen since Sarah died. And then, learning about Anna, seeing your strength, your dedication." He ran a hand through his hair, his vulnerability naked and beautiful. "I'm not offering you the job just to help. I'm being selfish, too. I want—" Thunder rumbled overhead, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Neither of them moved to seek shelter. "What do you want, James?" Sofia whispered, her voice barely audible over the growing storm. He stepped closer, rain now falling steadily around them. "A chance. To help Anna, yes, to give you the opportunity you deserve, but also—" His hand rose to cup her cheek, thumb brushing away a raindrop, or perhaps a tear. "A chance to feel alive again. With you." The rain fell harder now, but Sofia barely noticed. In that moment, everything crystallized. Anna's future, her own fears, the leap of faith before her. She thought of her daughter's words. "Don't be afraid. Not for me." Rising on her tiptoes, Sofia pressed her lips to James's cheek, a mirror of that first accidental embrace, but this time filled with intention. "Yes," she whispered against his skin, "to Boston, to the job, to the chance." His arms encircled her, strong and sure as the rain soaked them both. Above them, through a break in the clouds, stars twinkled, like hope, like possibility, like a future neither of them had dared to imagine until a late-night coffee break changed everything. Sometimes, Sofia realized, love comes not in grand gestures or fairy tale moments, but in simple acts of courage, in taking chances, in letting go of fear, in allowing yourself to say yes to the unexpected embrace of destiny. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of family, redemption, and the triumph of love over pride. Remember, it's never too late to change your story.